a product or service that they can sell in international markets, that we can help them get there.
Wonderful. Well, go ahead. I'll let you go ahead and take over on sharing your screen. We're very excited to get this information. If you're joining us as an attendee or on Facebook Live, please feel free to leave a question or comment, and we'll be sure to get to those responses. Thank you, Alyssa.
Great. I will go ahead and share my screen. Oh, you know what? It says another participant is sharing, so I'm not able to share at this time.
Got it. I just fixed that. You should be good now. Thank you.
All right. Let's get into it. So we will start from the beginning. All right. Can everyone see this now?
Not yet.
All right. Let me try one more time.
Okay.
So, share screen. There we go. All right. Can you see it now?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. We will go from the beginning and on. All set?
All set. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. For the time being, I'm going to stop my video and just share the screen itself. All right. So thank you guys for the introduction. And first off, I just want to say I hope that everyone on this call is staying healthy and well. And my thoughts are with anyone whose family or friends have been affected by the virus. But I'm so happy to have the opportunity to address each of you today and start a conversation with you about something that I'm really passionate about, which is the International Trade Program at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So I think it's safe to say that we've all been affected by the recent events, from business closures to working from home to social distancing, and so many more ways that our lives have been disrupted over the past couple of months. So that's why I wanted to take the time to connect with you today. As domestic markets have been disrupted, it's likely that many people are experiencing a decline in their sales nationally. And I wanted to let you know that our team is here to support your entry and growth internationally to new markets that may have a demand for your product or service. With all the changes going on, both at home and abroad, I think it's really important to understand the tools that businesses have at their disposal, especially those that they can access virtually, to help grow their business in such a time of uncertainty and change. Fortunately, we have a lot to offer companies right now. And this includes not only programs related to small business relief during this challenging time, and I'll get into some of those, but also some proactive measures that companies can start today to prepare for your business's growth in new markets. So I'll start by briefly describing what the MEDC is and some support services available now for companies, and then dive into the international trade resources. So MEDC, our mission is pretty simple. Our goal is to support the state's growth overall through business development, community development, and marketing our state through the Pure Michigan campaign. These 6 industries here represent the core focus industries that the organization, MEDC overall, is taking a proactive approach at supporting. If your business falls into one of these categories, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. Our trade team has worked with companies of all kinds, from hardwood suppliers to medical device manufacturers, specialty paint suppliers, and recently even makers of puppy incubators. So if you have a product or a service with a potential international customer base, we want to make sure that we want to make sure to help you get to that market and then expand in that market. So international trade is in the business development side of MEDC, and we have some great colleagues doing great work in other areas. So if you're working with your international trade manager and they discover that you have a need for capital that's not being served by the bank you're working with, or let's say you're looking for Michigan-based suppliers for a particular input in your supply chain, or let's say your company has the opportunity to expand in Michigan and grow your physical footprint, we will connect you with the right colleague at the right time to support those needs. David Newhouse is the International Trade Manager covering Oakland and Wayne counties. And my colleague Amanda Eisbrenner is the MEDC's Business Development Manager covering the city of Southfield and several other communities in the region. So I'm happy to connect anyone with either or both of these individuals after the webinar if you'd like to learn more or get engaged. So before we move on to international trade, I'd like to briefly touch on some support services that the MEDC and partners have developed for small businesses affected by the shutdowns and for those just generally facing uncertainty with a return to normal operations. So since the governor declared a state of emergency on March 10th, we have deployed 14 different response programs in support of small businesses, in support of communities, entrepreneurs and workers in all corners of the state. We've helped over 2,700 companies and helped retain over 11,000 jobs for Michigan workers, and we're really proud of that. We've got a few different categories of support here that I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of. First here is the Michigan Entrepreneur Resilience Fund. We partnered with Michigan Women Forward to create this $1.5 million fund that provides recovery grants between $1,000 and $5,000 and microloans from $5,000 to $10,000 for small businesses in need. To date, that fund has already received more than 1,100 applications for grant and loan support. The My Local Biz crowdfunding program, this is a one-to-one matching program with a grant for up to $5,000 from the MEDC utilizing crowdfunding to help maintain business operations. Capital Access, any business that has been affected by COVID-19 is eligible for support through the collateral support and loan participation programs in this Capital Access bucket. This helps borrowers acquire necessary financing in coordination with your bank that may otherwise be unavailable. So one really cool story that came out of this program is National Filters. They're out of Harbor Beach up in the Thumb, and they use this program to get some extra financing to purchase equipment that help them increase surgical mask production from 250 masks per day to 7,200 masks per hour. So don't be shy, our team's here to help. The PMBC COVID-19 procurement platform. I want to make sure everyone's aware of this one as well. Our Pure Michigan Business Connect program is providing a COVID-19 procurement platform to help employers access the PPE they need when reopening after the outbreak. So through this free platform, the team connects Michigan businesses in need of PPE with other Michigan businesses that have the supplier capacity to meet that demand. So that includes face masks, face shields, gloves, goggles, and so much more. So you'll find all of these resources on our website, michiganbusiness.org/COVID-19, and encourage you to check that out. All right, international trade. So why export? We work with companies at all stages of the export process. Maybe you've never sold anything outside the United States and are interested in seeing whether your product or service is competitive in a different country. Maybe you've had a few one-off sales to Canada, Mexico, and you'd like to see what kind of result you could get from a real customized market entry strategy into one of these markets. Or maybe you've had a ton of success already exporting your automotive components to Japan, and you'd like to expand to new markets in Southeast Asia. All of these activities, when successfully executed, bring in foreign dollars to our state and strengthen both our state economy and our national economy. So it goes without saying that exporting also diversifies your client base and helps your company become more resilient in the face of any one specific industry or regional downturn. So our program has 3 simple objectives: to increase Michigan companies' export sales, encourage and facilitate new small to medium-sized firms to start exporting, and finally, to help experienced exporters reach new markets. So we support companies through a variety of ways. We've got a great network of partners supporting the business community across the state. I'll go into more on those later. Our state trade expansion program grant is an opportunity for companies to receive up to $15,000 per year to support export-related activities. I'll go into more on that later as well. In terms of export education, we have training programs year-round. Some of those are one-off trainings on a particular topic. That could be export compliance or defense industry-related export requirements, understanding the new NAFTA, the USMCA agreement, which will go into effect July 1st of this year. When you're in our client system, you'll receive updates on at least a monthly basis, if not more often, on these opportunities. So we also organize trade missions. So bringing companies from a wide variety of industries into one or more countries. And during these missions, our foreign offices will set up one-on-one meetings with prospective buyers and distributors. In a normal year, we also attend trade shows where we go to a show like Arab Health in Dubai or Hannover Messe in Germany, and have a State of Michigan pavilion that companies can join with their own kiosk inside of that pavilion at a really reduced rate. So you get great visibility by joining with us, maybe at 10% or so of the typical cost of doing it alone. Trade counseling is our last point on here, but usually the first step when we're bringing in new companies to our program. As I mentioned, we have 5 international trade managers covering all 83 counties in Michigan, and they are your gateway into accessing all of these services and more. So I know we want to leave some time for questions, so I'll try and get through the rest of these slides pretty quickly. So our target companies, typically we want to make sure that you have at least 2 years of domestic sales to make sure that you're ready to go international. We work with small businesses, so under 500 employees or less. We do not work alone. We have a huge network of partners that we work with to deliver our services all across the state, and here's a handful of those. So as I mentioned, international trade managers here on the right, who I referred to earlier, they're your first step in getting export help and access to grant money, supporting your export activities. So most likely everyone on this webinar would be working with David Newhouse, who covers Oakland and Wayne counties. And then Automation Alley and Troy is our regional export partner for Region 10. They hold a ton of programming throughout the year on doing business in different parts of the world, as well as their own trade missions, usually 2 to 3 per year. So the STEP grant program, I love this program. Our team has worked really hard to get great export results for Michigan companies, and we've been awarded the top amount almost every year in this federal grant program through the SBA. Through this program, companies can receive up to $15,000 per fiscal year, which for us is October 1 through September 30th. And last year we paid out $2 million to over 300 individual companies, many of whom applied for and received multiple grants from us throughout the year. So activities that are eligible under the STEP grant include foreign trade missions, your own sales trips to Canada, Mexico, China, Poland, wherever you might be going, meeting with a prospective new client or a distributor, for instance, participating in training, and developing your website to and other marketing materials to make sure that they can be seen by an international audience. In response to the sudden decrease in travel activity, though, that we've seen related to coronavirus and travel restrictions, so many trade shows have been canceled and companies are no longer taking those sales trips to meet face-to-face with prospective clients. So in light of all that, we've recently been authorized to increase the annual cap on some of the virtual services that are eligible for the STEP grant. So website translation and design of marketing media, that cap has increased from $3,000 to $6,000 per year for reimbursements, meaning you would need to incur $12,000 in total expenses for these activities to get the full $6,000 back in the form of a matching grant. So for shipping sample products, that cap has been doubled as well, from $2,000 to $4,000. So this is just an overview of the grant application process and timeline. Usually we like to have anywhere from 2 weeks to a month advance notice on travel, training, website, marketing activities that you'll be requesting STEP reimbursements for. But if something urgent comes up, we can certainly work with you. So we have coverage in over 90 countries. This map shows everywhere we are. We've got 6 foreign offices and coverage through affiliate partners in, like I said, 92 different countries. Our trade centers can do a whole lot. We live in age, we're lucky that we live in this age where all of these services can be accessed virtually. And I really think that now is the time to start looking at tapping into these free services offered by our foreign offices to help you prepare for taking that next step in growing your company. As noted, these services include country-specific market and industry sector research, assistance in developing your own market entry strategy into a foreign country, setting up face-to-face meetings with prospective clients or distributors. And I really think that it's especially important to start this background homework now, so that when you're ready to take advantage of the matchmaking services, either virtually or when you can physically go into that new market, you can do so with all of the right information on hand. For the time being, I know that our foreign offices can provide a lot of crucial information and background information so that you're ready to make an informed move into the new market. So some of the other services that we offer through partners include legal trainings on IP and export compliance. There's so much that we have to offer, especially right now with our partners at Van Andel, who are doing a lot on USMCA trainings. Our partners at IBT Online, they have subsidized programs to help companies with creating microsites and website support to make sure that their products and services are more easily seen in foreign markets. So in a normal year, all of these things would have been happening, but we do have some upcoming trade events that we'll certainly make everyone aware of as those are changed. But we're looking at Japan and South Korea, Mexico and South Africa for the remainder of the year. So as those are either postponed or moved to be virtual, we'll keep everyone in the loop on how companies can still access those markets. We've had a lot of great success over the course of the last few years. We're almost at $3.5 billion now in program facilitated export sales. That's a fantastic marker. We're in all corners of the state, as you can see. Here's some trends in just the regional export sales for companies that we work with. We've seen a lot of traction in Europe and the Middle East lately. And as you might imagine, Mexico and Canada and China represent our top 3 markets. But we have clients with sales in 133 different countries. All right, so I'd like to answer any questions that anyone might have. So if we want to go ahead and start.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, we have several that came in. Thank you for that presentation with a lot of information and great takeaways. We have a question. What are the requirements to attend the Michigan Trade Conferences?
So really so we've got trade shows and trade missions. And obviously some of those are going to be changed throughout the course of the rest of this year as travel restrictions are eased or hopefully lifted. But the first step is speaking with an international trade manager. And like I mentioned, David Newhouse covers Oakland County and Wayne County, so he would likely be your first step. But really, if it makes sense for you to join one of our all industry trade missions, you're more than welcome to do so. Or we have these more industry specific trade shows that we attend. So really your first step, talk with an international trade manager, and we'll get you in the loop and engaged if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, David's not able to join our webinar today.
I have a follow-up question. Can you talk a little bit about the document preparation for the program for someone that would be onboarding and meeting with the counselor as the first step? What type of documents and preparation should they prepare for before that meeting?
So is that for a meeting? For a meeting with a new customer overseas, or is that for a meeting with one of the international trade managers?
One of the international trade managers.
So we have a really simple intake form. It's a page long on our website, and that really just takes into account where the company is, what their NAICS code is, if they are already exporting or not, and if so, where they're exporting to, just to give the international trade manager a baseline understanding of what the company's current activities are and what their needs might be. So there's really very little information that they need from a company beyond just some basic info to get started. So we try to keep it as simple as possible, and then they'll take that deep dive over the phone.
Perfect. And for someone that's looking to pivot their business model and they're interested in going into global trade, can you talk a little bit about the coronavirus pandemic impact on global trade at this time?
Yeah. The World Trade Organization just released an article, I want to say it was just earlier this week. Global trade is down. It's down in products, and they are seeing that services are, some services that can be delivered virtually are still being delivered virtually. So there certainly has been an impact. Some countries are looking to shorten their supply chain. So maybe before, where they had manufacturing operations that were pretty far away, supply chains where their manufacturing operations were far away from the end user, they're looking to bring those a little bit closer to home. And there is still plenty of opportunity out there. We've had, actually, just been pretty interesting for Michigan, a lot of interest and success in exports to Canada lately. So there's been a lot of companies that are working to connect with companies in Canada and seeing some success in that market.
Wonderful. David just sent a message. He is online.
Awesome.
Okay, if we pop you on, David, I'm going to see if I can.
That's great.
Promote you just so you can say hello. Yeah, I'm going to unmute you.
Awesome.
Hi. Giving me a little difficulty unmuting.
We're going through a thunderstorm here right now, and it's quite dark.
How are you? Welcome.
Thanks.
We wanted.
I just caught the tail end of Alyssa's last chart, so I apologize for joining late. I'm actually multitasking with two simultaneous webinars.
Got it. Well, we appreciate you hopping on the call. We're really excited to put a face with the name. We know that you represent our area. There's some people in the chat box that are asking for your contact information, so we'll be sure to get that, to share that in the chat room. But is there anything that you wanted to add in regards to if someone is interested in connecting with you and starting the process on what that looks like and kind of what their expectations could be with having a meeting with you?
Well, typically what I do, well, meeting face-to-face is the preference because you get a better bond, but certainly on the calls, we're all working from home right now. So what I would do is schedule a call And then we'd discuss the company, what the company's intentions were abroad, what their strengths are, what weaknesses, what their needs are. But most of all, it's trying to understand what they do. And we have so many programs, as I'm sure Alyssa shared with you, that can be used to increase your international sales. And of course, we're meeting with companies that are looking to export products as well as export their services. So we work from small companies to large companies. Typically, the general rule of thumb is if the company has 500 employees and less, they're our target market. Companies larger than that typically have their own international departments and don't necessarily need our services. But yes, I'm happy to meet with anybody in the Southfield area, and my contact information is Newhouse, D as in David, Newhouse spelled just the way it sounds, Newhouse, D, @michigan.org. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with any of those on the webinar.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and share your email address down in the chat box, and we'll be sure to connect you to our members and community.
Nope, it's not that. It's newhousid@michigan.org.
I'll go ahead and reverse it. Well, thank you all for joining the call. And I know, Alyssa, you plan to stick around just in case there were additional calls for you for the second half. We're going to transition and pull Paul Jones on. And if there are any additional questions for Alyssa or for David, please be sure to place them in the chat box. I got it corrected for you, David. Thank you.
That's right. That's it.
All right. Gonna switch it on over. Give us 1 second. Okay, so we should have Paul.
I'm here.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Jasmine, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Really excited to be part of this panel. One, I have a high level of appreciation for what David Newhouse and his team are doing. I met David a long time ago when I had a international business, and that program, I did not know all these resources were out there to entrepreneurs. So I can tell you that they're doing a lot of great work over there, and I'm really happy to be on the panel with them and to talk about the Goldman Sachs program with this group. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump in if you don't mind. And
Of course.
I can share my screen here. Hold on, my pit bull just decided that she wanted to cry because she sees some squirrels. So you may hear some crying pit bull in the background. But let me do a share screen. And 1 second. Okay. This should work. Okay, please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
I'll go back to present. All right. So I want to spend a few moments to talk about cash flow forecasting. And that's the topic of the day, it seems like, in this environment, because it's important, and I think it's necessarily so. But I would also just give you a little bit of insight into the Goldman Sachs program, what we're doing, and we can do a deep dive into cash flow forecasting. So a little bit about the Goldman Sachs program. By way of introduction, again, I'm Paul Jones. I'm the executive director of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, the Detroit site. The Goldman Sachs program is a national program. It's funded by Goldman Sachs, and they target small businesses the intent or the objective of the program is to help small businesses grow and scale up. And the initial objective was to help 10,000 small businesses go through a process where their business, by going through our program, their business would grow. And we hit the 10,000 small business. We hit the 10,000 mark with small businesses over, I think, earlier this year, late last year. And we're still going. So the program isn't going away. Goldman Sachs in 2011, when we started, they allocated or earmarked $500 million for this initiative. And the results have been outstanding. For the Detroit site alone, the companies that have gone through the program, over 74% of them have experienced revenue growth, and over 65% have experienced job creation. So the Goldman Sachs Foundation has been very pleased with our work, and they have continued to support the program. Because meaning Goldman Sachs Foundation, has invested so much capital in the program, we're able to provide a lot of great services and outstanding curriculum at no charge to the business owner. The requirements of the program are that you need to have over $100,000 in revenue, 2 employees or more, and have been in business for 2 years or more. With that, you're good to apply, and we would love to see any small businesses that are looking to grow in the long term. I know growth is not the first word that comes to mind in this environment, but I think, for many of the businesses who've decided to pivot or who've needed to pivot, they're looking at growth over a long-term horizon. And this program is just as relevant now, if not more so, to help you, again, assess your pivot opportunity, how to incorporate that in your overall business model and take your business to the next level. The 3 legs to this program, I would say, are: 1, we provide you with a lot of practical business education. And what I mean by that is there is a 4-month curriculum. It's a curriculum that's delivered over 4 months, and many people call it sort of an MBA or a boot camp for small business owners. It allows you to, it's delivered by a subject matter expert, but where it's unique from a traditional educational program is that it's designed for you to immediately implement it and make change, affect change in your business from day one. So it's more of a practitioner's guide rather than theoretical guide. Our cohorts usually have 30 to 40 small business owners in the cohort. So not only are you getting the benefit of a subject matter expert, but you're surrounded by other small business owners. And as a entrepreneur as well, I definitely can empathize and understand that being a small business owner and entrepreneurship is often a lonely planet. And being able to surround yourself with like-minded, growth-focused business owners can make a huge difference in terms of your support network, soundboarding ideas, and just having an ear to talk to that has been through a common training background. So it's a great group of people you would be working with. Outside of the program, we provide you with a lot of support from our community partners. We work closely with MEDC, and we bring some of those resources to bear, as well as SBA, or Small Business Association, SBDC. We also work very closely with various chambers, Southfield being one of our premier partners. So we try to bring as many resources to you to help you in your growth endeavors. And then the other component is assisting you in preparing to access capital. Sometimes growth is expensive, and you need to have capital resources to pursue your growth or pivot opportunities. Some business owners aren't immediately looking for capital, but it doesn't mean that you should not have that option on the table. Many businesses 6 months ago looked at getting capital and resources in a certain way. And now they realize that having access to capital could, in unpredictable situations, could be the difference between survivability and not. So we want to make sure that you are prepared. You have all the resources, the knowledge base, the support network, and if necessary, the capital to take your business to the next level. So that's a little bit about the Goldman Sachs program. If you're interested, please share your contact information with me, and we can give you a little bit more of a deeper dive into what the program is and how it can help you. Again, there is no cost to the business owners. Well, I should say there is a cost. There's a lot of time and energy that you would need to spend and commit to going through the program, but there's no financial cost because Goldman Sachs pays the bill. I forgot I had the tools. I'm used to someone else controlling the tools. Are there any questions about the program before I jump into the subject at hand?
Not at this time. You're good to go.
All right, great. So today, again, we're going to talk about cash flow forecast. And there's a renewed interest in cash flow, one, out of necessity, and two, because I think through this COVID situation, business owners have had a chance to step back and assess their path forward. And assessing your path forward necessarily means that you need to understand what type of financial resources you have and what different opportunities will have on your cash flow. Cash is king. Cash is the lifeblood of the company. And cash, again, is sometimes the difference between you surviving and not surviving. So that has really come into the picture over the last few months. And we like to try to take this opportunity to further enforce that and create some good habits so you have a very strong foundation going forward. I would say that there are differences between going through a cash flow forecast and analyzing your traditional financial statements, as is your income statement. And I also want to take this time to look at what are the primary elements of a cash flow forecasting tool. We have certain tools that we use, but we're tool agnostic. As long as you are incorporating the right information, then you're going to get the right output. So we want to make sure that we cover what should you look for in your cash flow forecasting tools. And any questions about our objectives, or can I go ahead and jump in?
You're all set.
Okay, so as I said, why are cash flow projections and forecasts important? Well, when you look at your traditional financial statements, many times that they are historic or backward looking, and projections and forecasts give you a roadmap to where you want to be and what decisions you take, how they will impact your business. So one, it allows you to know what your financial needs are. Many times at this point, companies are looking at, again, pivoting or looking for various financing sources, and knowing how much you need to pursue your pivot or growth opportunity is important. And that, as you're talking to potential funding sources, the better you have your arms around that, the more likely they're going to have the confidence and to fund you and help you get your business to where it needs to be from a financial standpoint. The second thing is that, like anything else, projections and forecasts are just that. It's a number, but it provides you with a framework to assess how well you're doing. If you don't have that starting point or know where you want to go, then you don't know if you're in the right path or not. And the third thing is that a lot of times it helps you communicate with various stakeholders. I know some people who have used their cash flow forecast to engage with their customers. One company in particular, they do a lot of wholesale to big box retailers, and they've used that as a tool to negotiate better payment terms. And they also went and used the same forecast to negotiate with some of their vendors and get more extended payment terms as well. Some have used their cash flow forecast to have discussions with their landlord to say, hey, listen, not able to pay you on the schedule we initially agreed on. Here's my new set of circumstances. Here's what we can do. So you're able to have more informed discussions when you have a better handle and assessment of what your cash flow will look like. You know, it'll instill confidence in not only you, but your partners to help you come to the right decision and work collectively to help your business survive through these tough times. Again, discussing how these forecasts differ from income statements. Now, first, I should say that income statement, P&L, profit and loss, they all are the same statement, the same document. I think finance people will come up with 3 or 4 different names for the same thing as a way to confuse you and charge you more money for a service. And I'm a finance person, so I say that with a grain of salt. But no, it's the same thing. And many times, the first statement that many small businesses look to, aside from sales, is their P&L. And P&Ls are a great start, but again, they're backward looking. They'll tell you what you did last year, but they don't always lead you directly to a platform in which you can make decisions, especially when your historics may differ substantially from what your current reality looks like. So again, forecasts are necessarily forward-looking in nature. P&Ls also don't always include some items, some cash items that need to be reflected. So an example is that many times your income statement, your P&L, will show your expenses, but they may not show other obligations that you have to debt holders. So again, they may not show your principal payments that are coming due. They also may not show some other obligations you have to yourself. So P&Ls don't always show owners' draws or expected owners or dividends to yourself. And you certainly, if nothing else, whenever you're planning your business and you're looking at how you price your goods, how you become economically viable, you always want to factor in that you should be carving out money for yourself. You have to make sure that you're paying yourself. And if it's not something you plan for, then most of the time it doesn't happen. So that's where a lot of times the P&L will differ from the cash flow forecast. The other thing I would say is that when we're looking at cash flow forecasts, is for shorter time intervals. Many times people will have you do your projections for 3 years or 5 years or 2 years. And that's great if you're trying to build a picture of where you want to go in the long term. But many times for small business owners, you need to know how to make decisions for tomorrow. You need to know if you can hire someone tomorrow or if you need to wait till next quarter. And that's where having shorter intervals allows you to have a better view on making real-time decisions right now. So that's where a forecast may be a bit different from your traditional projections. And I'm going to give you a quick example of what a P&L, a cash flow forecast will look like and some of the elements. And we'll do a deep dive in different aspects. When you're looking at cash flow forecasts, you should, one, start with how much cash you have now. So what is your cash beginning balance? I typically like to look at cash flow forecasts from anywhere from 2 months to 3 months. So this is an example of an 8-week cash flow. Some people promote more of a 12-week or 13-week, which is 1 quarter. But understanding, one, what your starting cash balance is, how much cash you plan to have coming in over that time, which is your cash inflow and your cash outflow. And we'll talk about each of these elements. So it sounds very basic, but as we do a little bit more of a deeper dive, we'll talk about the nuances in looking at what's your cash inflow, how to project out your cash inflow, and how to project out your cash outflow. I'm very sensitive to some of the challenges that come about from doing cash flow forecasts. Many business owners, that is such there's so much uncertainty in normal times, much less in these times, that having someone do a cash flow forecast is, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Like, okay, yeah, I don't have my crystal ball with me. How do you expect me to tell you what's going to happen in the future? Well, one, that's why I like to look at, again, sometimes shorter durations, because you may have a better assessment of what's going to happen over the next 2 months than what's going to happen 2 years from now. So this is a good starting point to get your mind into thinking about making projections for the future. And then there's certain methodologies that you can take to get a little bit closer to what your reality may look like. And the third thing is, understand you're not going to be 100% correct in your projections. But at least if you look at what you are doing, look at what you forecasted, and then go back and look on a weekly basis or monthly basis about what actually happened, then you're in a better position to revise your forecast and know what went right and what went wrong. But if you don't have that level of insight, then you're just going to be operating in, with your blinders on. So let's talk about the cash inflow side first. Many times you're going to start by projecting how much revenue you're going to bring in. And that revenue, again, can come from your pipeline. You may look at your pipeline of current customers, historics, how many transactions you're expected to do. In some businesses, if you're into purchase orders and accounts receivable, using that as a basis to determine how much cash inflow you're going to have. And mind you, when you're looking at your cash flow projections, you're projecting cash that's coming in. So if you have a business that is making a sale, but you're gonna get a receivable. In other words, you're not going to get paid, but you're going to get a commitment to pay in the future. You would not include that into your cash inflow. And I'll go into that more specifically. Other cash inflows that may affect your business right now could be grants. If you're expecting to get grant revenue, if you're expected to sell an asset, or if you are also looking at the possibility of having to do a capital injection. So this tool is meant to help you determine how much of a capital injection you would need to make, and give you some visibility of how much you're going to need to make, how long you're going to have to make it in order to sustain your business through these tough times. Let me give you a couple examples of projecting the revenue. Oh, are there any questions that I can stop and pause for?
There was a question regarding what do new firms typically struggle with in regards to cash flow?
What do new firms typically struggle with when it comes to, it's a good question. So I would say new firms often, you're working in the world of unknown. So you're starting to go down this path of, how do I project for something that I have no historic basis for? So that takes me to a point that many times your best reference on what's going to happen in the future is based off how much you looking at historically what you've done and making some comparisons against that. Now, if you don't have that historical context, if you're just starting up from anew, then many times you'll have to look at a comparable business. So you'll do some industry research. You may say, for a bakery in this side of town, on average, they're doing this much revenue in square foot. I like to look at, it depends on the industry as well. And we'll look at a couple of different models that you can use to address that. But yeah, it is definitely more challenging for a startup business to come up with projections than someone who has some historical basis to use. Although the historic basis is changing a lot now because we're in a different environment than we normally would be. Let me jump into this next slide, and that may help answer that question a bit more.
Perfect.
So here's a couple of methods that we're going to just briefly touch on. One method is a transaction method. Hold on, I'm going to send this dog away because it's getting a little bit crazy. 1 second, please. Oh, she stopped. Okay. She's she sees some squirrels out there, and at least she's not barking. So one method is a transaction method. And this is, and we'll do a deep dive into this, but this is looking at how many transactions you're expected to do a week, and then what you think your average ticket could be. Another method is a historical comp method. So you're looking at what did I do last year, and what do I expect to do this year relative to last year? And again, that's predicated on you actually having some historical reference. The PO and AR method. This is particularly interesting or useful for companies that have longer term sales processes or collection processes. So in many cases, you'll have businesses that receive purchase orders, and they receive a purchase order. They have to make the good or deliver the good. And once they deliver it, then it becomes accounts receivable. And when they, and then from the accounts receivable, they have their customer has a certain period of time in which to pay. And the traditional accounting models or financing models, sometimes the POs, because they're so far down the line and they're not obligated commitment to pay, they may not show up in your financial statements. But these are monies that you can count on being there as long as you, again, deliver the good when you're supposed to, and you have a customer that sticks to the terms of their payment, sticks to their payment terms. So PO and AR may not necessarily work for a company like a restaurant or a salon that's doing more cash in, cash out transactions, but for manufacturing companies, it may be the right model. I'm going to skip past the manual because manual just means, pulling up numbers because none of the other methods work for you. But another method may be your customer base. So for many service companies, this is actually a pretty interesting approach. This is where you lay down all of your customers and maybe you're doing projects for, maybe you get recurring revenue from them, and you show what they're expected to pay based off you delivering a service or delivering goods as you've agreed to do so with them. And now, again, that sounds a little bit mushy. So I think the best way to go into a little bit more of a deep dive is to show you a couple examples. I know I don't have that much time, so I'm going to move through it quickly, but I will always pause if you have a question. Here's a transaction method. It looks pretty messy, but it's simpler than it may look. In this example, let's say you have a restaurant and you're expecting to do this week of June 8th, 50 transactions over the week, and your average revenue of $48. And then the next week, you're expecting to go up to 60, still average ticket or average person pays $48. So here it gives you a little bit more insight to not only what your revenue is, but what does it consist of. And if you have one or two different products you may want to distinguish between, you can list all of the product groups or revenue buckets, look at how many transactions you're expecting to have and what your average ticket is. This becomes very significant because after the end of the week or month, if you look at what you actually did versus what you projected, then you can make some distinguishments between what happened and why things went well or did not go as you expected. So maybe you did more transactions, but the average patron spent less per transaction than you thought they would. And that helps you get some insight and determine how you could maybe get more average ticket going forward. So this is, again, really good for salons, transactional businesses, salons, restaurants, retail stores, etc. Another model is what we talked about, the historical comp model. So this is probably very relevant in these times where you don't quite know where to start, but perhaps you say, okay, I know this time last year, I did $12,000 this week. I did $13,000 the week of June 15th. And given where we're at with this COVID situation, I'm expecting that my revenue is going to be off 75%. And then next week, it's going to be off 75 to 65% for the foreseeable future. But starting in July, we're expecting to see, us getting closer back to reality. So this allows you to use that historical context and then figure out how much you plan to go above or lower than sales to come up with some reasonable numbers. And then the last method I'll just give an example of is the customer base. So again, this works really well if you're in the service business, if you're a marketing company and you're doing PR campaigns or websites or just getting recurring revenue. You can say, okay, I know my client Pete's Plumbing. We did a job for him. It should be ending on this date on June 25th. So he's going to pay us $2,500 then, and then here's some of my other clients. And based off the services I'm giving for them, this is my expected date in which they're going to pay their bill. So you can look at a customer by customer basis. The really cool thing about this customer approach is that what I've seen is that it leads you to have conversations with your customers, and you'll call Pete up and say, "Hey, Pete, we're still good with you paying on the 25th, right?" Or Pete may call you up and say, "Things are a little bit tough, but I can pay you on the 1st," and you can actively move the money around so you can know realistically how much money you're having come in. It also can incentivize you to get done with projects quicker because you know that you'll need these monies to come in so you can cover your bills. So these are a couple of examples of different revenue income models. I'm going to move over to the cost side, and I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but are there any questions now? I'm happy to wait to the end, but if there's any burning questions,
we can wait to the end. We're going to wrap in about 5 minutes, so we'll let you go through this other half. And then if we have questions after that, for the people that have to log off, they can, and we'll still record. We are recording on Facebook Live, so we'll be able to reshare this information as well as the recording you put on our website.
Okay, great. So I would say I'm going to go through the cash outflow side pretty quickly. Going back to our model, we covered the beginning cash balance, we covered the cash inflow side, and now we're going to talk about the outflow. And going back to where we were, there are a few three primary categories to be specific that you should consider when doing your cash outflow. One is your direct costs or cost of goods sold and how much you need to pay for inventory. And this is really going to be driven by what you expect to do in sales. So the more sales that you're doing, the more you have to pay your contractor who's delivering the sales, or the more products you have to buy or ingredients you have to buy. Operating costs are more, they're costs that usually occur and they're not always directly correlated to how much you do in sales. So example of operating costs may be your rent or your utilities. These are costs, again, if you do 0 in sales to if you do quadruple what you normally do, these costs are, they're still going to be there. And then the area that many small businesses forget or overlook is their financing costs. And this is how much they have to pay to cover their debt, if they have credit card bills they need to pay, and just as important as everything else is how much they're expecting to take out of their business. So these are the primary cost categories that you want to consider. I'm going to just sort of go through, give you a couple tips, and then I'm going to wrap up. One is, like I said, direct costs are often driven by your revenue forecast. So the higher your revenue are, usually the higher your direct costs are. Another tip when looking at your direct cost is you may start with, if you're a service company or any company, knowing what your payroll dates are and making sure that you include those. I mean, it sounds obvious, but that's a cost that's going to come no matter what. So starting with your payroll dates and putting that into your model. Knowing what your recurring expenses are and what date specifically. So if you have bills like subscriptions to Microsoft or Pandora that come the same day every month, make sure you factor those in. Again, just going through pretty quickly, the biggest this slide, I'll walk through a little bit more detailed. If you have loans, make sure you factor that into your equation. If you have credit cards, again, with many credit cards, there's not a fixed amount that's due every month, but if you have the intent to pay it down over a certain period of time, determine how much you want to pay off and include that. If you have a credit card bill of $10,000 and you're saying, you know, every month I'm going to pay $2,000 on it, put that as part of your budget and factor it in, because that obviously does chew up cash. Pay yourself. If you take draws, make sure you specify how much of a draw you're going to pay yourself and include that into your model. And third thing is understand that there are capital expenditures. You may have to buy that new piece of equipment. Putting money to the side for various capital expenditures is important. So those are some tips that I wanted to share with you. Again, understand, like anything else, this is like walking. The first couple of times you're going to fall on your face, but you're only going to be good at it if you continue to put your best foot forward. Do it with some level of cadence. Maybe have a finance Friday where every Friday you go through and determine how much and just update your cash flow projections. You'll know what you need to do in the next week, to what decisions you need to make and adjustments you have to make in the upcoming week. So I would say on a weekly basis, update your forecast and continue and share it with someone. You don't need to share with your employees, but you need to have an accountability partner, because like most people, you pay to go to the gym, you pay for a personal trainer, not because you don't know how to do push-ups yourself, but you need someone who's going to make you do it. So having that accountability partner is key in most things, especially when managing your finances on a regular basis. So thank you so much. I'd love to talk with you guys more about the program or address any issues you have online or offline about cash flow forecasting. And I really appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Paul. We have a question regarding cash flow program tools. Is there an industry standard for tools that you can use to track your cash flow?
Yeah, there are. And I think having a tool that reflects your industry, the nuances and the particulars about your industry is very important. Again, we've developed some tools that work across industries, but if you are working with Progressive Payments as a contractor, having a tool there, I would just go online and look for tools for contractors, but that's going to be a lot different than if you're a restaurant and it's cash in, cash out, or if you are a consultant that is working on monthly recurring payments because your payments pay you once a month. But yeah, in most industries, there is something, and it may not speak specifically to dog groomers' cash flow technique, but look for something that reflects the cadence of your money that comes in and what drives that.
Perfect. Well, we definitely appreciate you joining us for this call. I'm going to move over to unmute and have Jason, Alyssa. This technology, guys, we're getting it down.
There you go.
Right. The panel's all here. Well, we are so glad that we were able to have this conversation with MEDC. Alyssa, thank you so much for your time. Once again, Alyssa Tracy went over international trade and the program that's at MEDC. And Paul Jones, thank you, Paul. We appreciate the breakdown for all of the good information regarding cash flow. That is definitely a hot topic. If there are additional resources that business owners are interested in doing a further deep dive, Paul, do you have a recommendation on how they could do so?
I do. I provide, if they would, I'll share my contact information.
Okay.
And I'm happy to provide whatever resources we have in-house or direct you to other sites we have resources. The Small Business Development Corporation, SBDC, is a great resource. SCORE is out there as well. So there's a lot of free resources available.
Perfect. Well, we love being social while we're social distancing. So Paul, go ahead for the people that are on Facebook and just tell us, what is your email address? And Alyssa, I'll have you do the same.
Sure. Paul Jones. So PaulJones at Wayne. That's WAYNE.edu. So Paul Jones at Wayne.edu.
Perfect. And Alyssa, just for those that may have joined us late, what is your contact information?
Sure. You can reach me at traceya@michigan.org. That's TRACEYA@michigan.org.
Perfect. And last but not least, over at the Southfield Chamber of Commerce, we have some great upcoming webinars. Next Friday, be sure to join us for our Sales 2.0 webinar, where we will have John DeWaskin, business coach, and Brenda Miller, who is a LinkedIn presenter and trainer. Our final call of action for today, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you thought of this presentation. We're going to take our social snapshot. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture. We'll post it up and we'll get engagement and we'll share it with the people who are on the call. All right, guys. Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar with the Southfield Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.